Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad. These are the kinds of shows that I love and live for. Our Arsenal community, the people who are inspiring, and our club that is embracing diversity. And thanks to my friend, Mr. Dave Seager, and his book, Arsenal for Everyone, these stories are out there and being told. Here we go.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, everyone. It's the Summer Series, episode 7. It's Arsenal for Everyone. It's one of my favourite books of the year so far. Here it is. We've spoken to Dave about this before, but we're back because we're blessed today to have a couple of the key inspirational figures that were part of Dave's beautiful storytelling in this book with us. For those of you listening on replay, thank you so much. It is the summer, so we know a lot of you will not be joining us live, but will be on either YouTube or audio, iTunes, Spotify, and Acast. So thank you for tuning in. You can always put your comments and ask for any questions to be answered after the show. Welcome to those in the house. Good evening, squaddies at ease. Mr. Dave Seager, welcome back.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Very, very good. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm still disappointed that I didn't see you when you came over to London. But apart from
that was my fault. That was terrible organisation on my part, and me being way too excited to try and fit in food and all sorts of things during my last visit. So I promise that won't happen again. I'll be back at the start of the season. But you do have two fabulous fellas here. I can introduce them, but I was thinking maybe you should introduce them.
Happy to do so.
I would love that.
Well, Keryn and I have been friends since obviously watched him in the Paralympics 2012 in London. Just after that, Arsenal invited all the Paralympians. Keryn at the time was not captain of Great Britain, but he was playing regularly for Great Britain. He later became captain. But it was a massive oversight on Arsenal's part, which I'm sure Keryn will elaborate. But they invited all the Paralympians onto the pitch the first game of the season, and Keryn wasn't there. So a friend of ours, a friend of the show, the Yorkshire gunner, pointed out to the club that there'd been an oversight. So Keryn was invited to a game pretty quickly after that. So I've known Keryn since around then. I've actually hired Keryn as a public speaker, and he really is a truly motivational, inspirational man. And Anthony, I've only known obviously since the book. I've got to know Anthony when I was doing the interview for the book. Again, he will have more insight than either Keryn or I about how much Arsenal actually do, because obviously he's been involved with the committee and supporting the increased facilities and improvements that the club have made over the last few years. So
amazing. Okay, and Anthony also is a member of the British Empire.
I am. Yeah,
well, I'd let him say that.
I mean,
you can laugh talk about it.
How do you go about getting one of those? I'd like one of those.
I'd love to know. I literally got a letter in November when we were 2018, and there it was. So someone had nominated me through being at work. Yeah, for what I do.
Love it. Dave, what I also love about Keryn and Anthony tonight is Keryn is sporting the Wales shirt, and his boy Gareth Bale's just landed on my doorstep together with Chiellini to play for LAFC, and Anthony's rocking his Bergkamp Dutch shirt. I'm just wearing a regular sweatshirt. Do you have a rose or a lion buried under that?
No, I'm letting the side down. But literally, I walked through the door 10 minutes ago. I've been driving about 300 miles today. I've only just got in. So it's also smart casual for a business meeting. This one.
On behalf of myself and Super Kevin Campbell and everyone, we'd like to wish you congratulations on the birth of your beautiful granddaughter.
Oh, right, baby Ray. Yes.
Congratulations! It must be amazing. Like a new lease of life in so many different positive, beautiful ways.
Very positive focus after some sort of obviously disappointments. Amazing. In fact, amazingly, she was also born 10 days early on my wife's birthday. So her grandmother and Ray share the same birthday, June the 8th. So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Well, congrats, and we look forward to seeing Ray in her first Arsenal shirt.
By the way, let's get that in there. I do not look old enough to be a grandfather.
You don't. All right, Keryn and Anthony, let's get cracking here. Arsenal for Everyone. It's a great book. The club have got behind it. Great folks like Jack Wilshere, Bob Wilson, and many others that Dave will remind us of during the show have gotten behind this wonderful book. I'm really a proponent of, I love talking about transfers and I love talking about post-game stuff and I love talking about the club, but my favorite shows that we do here are the trips down memory lane, the Evergreen series, the really getting stuck into the artistic part of our community and the inspirational parts of our community as well. So, Anthony, I'm going to start with you. I believe that you became a fan in the early 90s.
Bit earlier than that. I think talking about Dave's looking a little bit, I don't look old enough. I sadly am. So my first game was the start of the 86-87 year.
Okay, so tell us why Arsenal. I mean, I've read the book and I know, but some of our listeners may not have. And I love your story and I love how also your challenges became some of your greatest achievements as well. But tell us about becoming an Arsenal fan and how that happened for you.
So I grew up in North London in Camden. So Arsenal was the sort of logical choice. There was QPR to the west and even a bit further at Chelsea, the other lot up the north. That's too far. So yeah, that was a simple choice for that. And my sister and her other half at the time were season ticket holders, and so I kind of started as a 10-year-old, was sort of paying attention a little bit more, and I got a ticket. And it was nothing there. And the wheelchair area at Highbury back in the day in '86 would probably only accommodate about 18. So I was quite lucky to get a ticket there. And I don't really remember much about the game. I know we lost to Liverpool. But nothing's changed really. 30 odd years now. But, it was the sound and the color that really captured me, and there was the fan born sort of thing, and it hasn't stopped, and hopefully never will.
Okay, so I want to capture both of you, and Keryn, jump in now and let me know when you became an Arsenal fan, because then I want to know how that collides with your worlds and your trajectory in life, and how that also came to be something completely different as well. So Keryn, how'd this Welsh boy become a Gooner?
Well, I suppose the start of that is actually towards the end. It sort of maps up with the end of it, really, because I'm talking through the lens of your archetypal armchair fan who latterly come into to support the game in the ground. So, yeah, growing up in South Wales, it was all Swansea, Cardiff, or Liverpool back then. Maybe start of Man United's dynasty, and it was the 92-93 season. And everybody was just hating on Arsenal. It was the boring Arsenal era, and maybe a naturally contrary person decided that was going to be the team that I followed, and I followed them on and off through that season. But the game I remember that actually got me hooked was the FA Cup semi-final when Tony Adams scored that header against Spurs to take us into the Wembley final. So that was the turning point for me. I'd kind of just been a on the edge supporter, sort of probably just supporting the team because nobody else liked us. And then after that, then I was fully on board.
I love that. Now, I'm a fan and I get to go to games, get on the tube, I walk, I get on the bus, I go. I don't think twice about how I'm going to get there. And I just wanted to start off and maybe swing it to Dave first to take it to you guys, in the sense that what I love about what Dave has done about this book is he's told these stories about how your love for the club also translated into making things better, which I think is incredible. And I just think that sometimes we forget about that maybe not everyone has as ease of access in everyday life as we do, and it can happen to anyone at any moment to have that obstacle to face. And Dave, what I love is that they love the Arsenal, but you decided to do this book because it was a good cathartic process for you, and almost like a healing process for you. But then you came to discover that there's all these fans that go to games or try to go to games or have tried, but yet through that have made things better for maybe generations coming before them. Can you talk me through that process a little bit and how you
Well,
came to be
yeah.
with these two fellas?
Well, it was because I was just a bit numbed after losing my son, and I wasn't writing much, and I wanted to get back into it. And I wanted to find something that really sort of took my sort of gripped my sort of imagination really, and was something different. And because I'd sat next to Alex Brooker for so many years, who a lot of the people who are watching the show will know Alex from the last leg, and so I've known Alex, and I've drunk with Alex, and I've been to games with Alex, home and away, and so I've been through that experience as someone with a disability. Obviously, all the disabilities in the book are variable and very different. But then I saw Alex's documentary, which he did for the BBC about his life, and there was quite a big section in that documentary where he went and met with other disabled supporters and the wheelchair supporters in the game, one of the games in the lounge before the game, and it just set me thinking about that. I felt differently about football for different reasons, grief and the fact that it wasn't quite so important to me. But then I thought about there's a whole community of people who just football is a very different experience for them for different reasons. And I'm not comparing grief with disability in any shape or form, but I just thought this is something where I can speak to people who just for whatever reason, whether it's something happens during their life, something from birth, some illness, it's just changed the way forever that they're going to be able to support the club, whether they can't see the action, whether they can't hear the action, whether they can't jump up when the team scores, whatever it may be, the experience is different to mine. And that's how it started. But the thing that changed, I think you've hinted at, was I had no idea until I started talking to these amazing people how much our own club did. And you're always proud to be an Arsenal fan, and you always think of Arsenal as a classy club. And I just discovered that they were even more classy than perhaps I believed. And certainly, Anthony particularly was one of the chapters that really brought that home, because obviously Anthony's been heavily involved in changing things at the club in the way we approach what we do for disabled supporters in all walks of life. So, that was an amazing experience. And, it's just inspirational to talk to people, like Keryn and like Anthony and so many other people in the book, that it just humbles you entirely.
Yeah. And Anthony, you're part of Level Playing Field, and let me get this right, the Centre for Access to Football in Europe. You really truly have been a pioneer, and Dave puts it right. When did that process for you happen within Arsenal, the club, the community, kind of bridging the gap between, difficulty versus making the access so much more seamless for a certain group of our fans?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, we set up ADSA, so the Arsenal Disabled Supporters Association, in 2016, and I was the interim chair of that group, and then I continued in that role until the pandemic, when I took a little bit ill and I stepped away from the group. I'm now back on it as if you follow ADSA on Twitter, and there's a free plug for them. I get the social media, so I
you
do.
Probably should say what those four initials stand for, Ant, for the.
Yeah, so sorry if you did miss it. So ADSA, at ADSA, or Arsenal DSA. So it's Arsenal Disabled Supporters Association, and it's a representation of all the Arsenal disabled supporters. Simple as, and to champion their needs, their requirements, together with the club as a liaison, as a bridge. And also to showcase those good facilities and improvements that Dave's already sort of suggested there. I think before obviously ADSA was created, Arsenal have been quite receptive over the number of years, and Dave's book obviously there's one chapter on Alan Francis, who was at the time outgoing disability liaison officer. Who transitioned from Highbury into the move to the Emirates, and Alan and his team did great work, did some great stuff to establish us at the new stadium, and there is never going to be one building that's ever going to be perfect from day one, and that's the perfect example that no one is actually asking for that. It's for regular review, continual sort of improvement, and trying to make the best and equitable, not necessarily equal, but equitable provision of facilities. And I very strongly, I actually think Arsenal and Emirates Stadium is up there and on par with the best we've got here, certainly in the UK. And I would be brave enough to say across Europe as well.
And
Spurs,
Anthony, you know this because you're a really well-travelled away fan, not only across football, but also we were talking about your passion for cricket before we came on air. But you know this because you travel to watch a game.
So in the book, when Dave and I were putting it together, I was taken quite ill during the pandemic. So I said to Dave, I'm going to step back from away games, and I think I've missed one away game last season, and that was Everton on a Monday night.
And this was a serious.
That was a good one to miss.
Serious heart condition. Serious heart condition. I'm not going to travel anymore.
Bless you.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Don't do as I do. Just do as I say. And in next week, I'm actually flying to Nuremberg for a pre-season friendly.
You nutter.
So I think I've done about 70 odd European away games. So I raised that because actually I pretty much covered most of the stadiums here in the UK, and that's obviously my perspective, my experience as a wheelchair user. But going across to Europe, and even the problems we'll have next week because we still don't have a ticket yet, to be honest with that. The facilities you get across Europe is vastly different, and I would say substandard to what we have here in the UK, and that's where I'm linked in with as a sort of champion for level playing field and cafe, as you already said, and that's to ensure that standards are met, good practice is being shared, and actually we can be purely representative of all disability types. Because of my experience as a wheelchair user, I can sympathise and share what Keryn's likely to experience here as someone who's blind or partially sighted, but my experience will differ to his. So it's not right that I speak for him, but I can champion what he and other blind supporters would require, and that's what ADSA, partly as what they're carrying on now, but when we set it up, would be to ensure a representation about all disability types, not just those who are visibly disabled, wheelchair users, etc. It needs to be across the board.
That's a beautiful thing you've said, because it kind of riffs off what Dave's book is about. And I love that you can speak to your experience, but each person's experience is a lot different. Each person's challenge is a lot different. Keryn, you are now part of the British blind sport, but you're a Paralympian, you've played for England, you're a cricketer and a footballer as well. And a lot of people are DMing me and saying, hello, what are those caps behind Keryn? They want answers to that. So talk us through a little bit about your experience. We've had young Mikey Pooley on the show, and we talked to him and his father. Would love to hear your perspective on that experience of becoming a fan and going to games and what that means, and how you had to, travel to, or what the facilities were like for you at the start.
Sure. Just listen to Anthony talk there. Just kind of makes me feel so inferior as a fan, because just like I said, traveling to that amount of away games in the UK. And it's something I'm really keen to get involved with now as we move forward. Now I'm not playing every Saturday or at training camps. I'm hoping to get away and do more. And the fact that Anthony's been able to go away and do this and kind of sort of do that heavy lifting for the rest of the kind of disabled supporters, not just at Arsenal, but across Europe, to be able to know what access is like across these grounds is a really big thing, because I've started going away with Wales now over the last couple of years. So last year I went to the Euros in Azerbaijan, and recently to Rotterdam for Nations League, and Anthony's right when he said that the facilities and understanding of disability and how access should be kind of garnered is definitely not as good as it could be overseas as it is in this country. And I think we're lucky with the Emirates because it's a new building, same as places like the Amex and maybe Brentford with their community stadiums. A lot of those stadiums now are built with accessibility in mind from the start, and I think the fact that ADSA and the club are always in these dialogue mean that we're always going to be ahead of the game when it comes to disabled access. But in terms of my own experiences, recently this year I've gone to a couple of games. I went to Southampton at home, and that was a fantastic experience. Sat with Dave next to him there when we sort of did Dave's book launch at the Tollington. And lastly, not so great experience. We went to Brighton at home at the end of the season. But in terms of actual match day experience, for me, I love traveling. I love traveling all over Europe. I love getting about, playing. So that whole traveling up on the train from Devon across London on the tube, getting onto the Holloway Road, that for me was like a huge buzz for the first couple of times doing that. And the first time I met Dave, I was like, no, I'll meet you in the Tolly, and then ended up getting lost to our front. So come to some really nice
wrong direction.
I blame Google Maps, but there's some really nice old lady who showed me the way. So I was very lucky there. But again, so just being part of the match day experience at the pub, being at the pub afterwards, it's all something I probably discounted myself from doing earlier in my life. It was always like I was either playing, and if I wasn't playing, it was like, well, am I going to get the same access to the experience as if I was at home on the radio? And obviously the short answer is no, because now I don't have to carry a little transistor Roberts radio around with me and hope that the broadcast is good. I know that there's going to be in-house audio description commentary. I know there's going to be people around to point me in the right direction if I get lost, like that old lady that did. So, and just such a welcoming club. And again, through the online Twitter community and through Dave and his friends, I've really sort of discovered a whole new group of people that I wouldn't have, had it not been for the club. And the club kind of sort of welcoming me into that first was in 2012, and then sort of through Dave in the book and then my mum actually buying me a disabled membership this year. But again, and something that's also come great from the disabled membership this year is I saw pretty instantly that they swapped it from being a purple membership just to being a general membership, and you're just a disabled fan within that. And that kind of equity that Anthony's talking about is that those tiny little things is what sort of makes us disabled fans feel included when those little points of difference are recognised and mitigated for.
I think, Sophie, if I can
that's
jump
amazing,
in
Dave. Yeah, please jump in. I love
just
that.
On the point that Keryn's making, because this is one of the things first couple of interviews I did, two of them were not Keryn and another blind supporter, was the quality of the commentary and what we provide at the Emirates compared to other stadium. A lot of other clubs, and no one in Arsenal's ever going to say, oh, this other club or that other club, or if they did, they didn't want me to put it in the book. But trust me, we are streaks ahead in this sort of thing. So the commentary is designed to be for the partially sighted or blind supporter, whereas a lot of clubs will just link it to a local radio station or have the same commentary they would provide for a sighted fan. And you've only got to say to anyone listening to grip, to grasp what I'm saying is just watch the television with your eyes closed for a couple of minutes during a match, and it'll be, like Jermaine Genius, he's in the hole, he's in the pocket, he's doing this. There's what you want is,
storytelling, really.
Tomiyasu pass through to Nketiah scores. You want what's actually happening, which was what commentaries were like in the 60s and 70s. It's drifted so far away from that, and it just becomes like two people. Like I think Keryn described it as just like two people chatting, like as if they're on a podcast, rather than actually commentating on what's happening on the pitch, which for most of us we wouldn't think about.
No, that's a really great point. I feel like American baseball does that really well still here on radio. They paint a picture. It's like Yeah, but they've got plenty of time to tell stories, I guess, Dave. Well said.
That's true.
Great example by me. But no, American sports radio tells a little bit, they talk about the grass, the colour of the sky.
It's nice because it's evocative.
Yeah.
It's nice. You get that old style description of what's actually happening and the atmosphere and, as you say, the grass, the colour, everything. That's what you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. No, you're right.
Go on, Keryn.
I was just going to say American sport does have that down to a T. I've got many UK blind friends who still listen to NHL, still listen to baseball as well, just for those kind of reasons. But Dave's right, the commentary is very good. It could do with being a bit louder, but the commentary is very good. And the fact is that they are painting the picture. They're saying what's going on in the clock end. They're saying what's happening, sort of in and around the pitch. but also, yeah, you are getting that commentary without the inane flirting between commentator and summariser and the endless stats. So yeah, it's a good experience.
The Brighton game, he was so taken by it, he stole the kit when he left the stadium. That's the pub later, he said, "What bloody hell, Dave? I've still got this in my pocket."
Oh, I want to steal one of those caps on the wall. Anthony, you go from, in the book you talk about the playground, being the goalkeeper, wheeling left, wheeling right, but you were loving it, to now being so ingrained in Arsenal's community and being a part of that. How do you bridge the gap from maybe fear? Because there's so many young people listening, so many young people who maybe be challenged for the first time with what they're going through, or parents, to bridge that gap from the joy of maybe feeling that freedom in school when you were afraid, to becoming an adult and then being part of something that's maybe a little bit bigger than yourself.
Blimey, that's a meaning of life question for me, to be honest. I think there for me personally, I think it helps. I don't have a huge amount of fear, in terms of that would hold me back in that, and I do recognise that others would, and part of that's opportunity. Getting opportunity back in the 80s and to get a ticket and to something that's accessible. But for me, a lot of to be equipped for a disabled person to go to football and know what you're having. So what Keryn was saying about when he gets the train up from Devon and go across London to the pub, a lot of that is to how he does that, or how you can get to the game, how you can get a ticket, where to go, etc. And that's information. And actually, where a lot of football clubs lack was giving advanced information and detailed information about how disabled fans can access their.
Do Arsenal do that? Because obviously I'm not signed up for that. So do they do that?
Brilliantly. I mean, and Dave does, the chapter there about Alan Francis, and that just detailed in Dave's book. And I'm going to give a plug to the disability liaison team within the club, because there has been some new recruits, and we got a new disabled access manager in John Deister, Jackie Pollard as the disability liaison officer, and from January of this calendar year, I would say we've improved in the region of 25-30% beyond where it was before. And the conversations we're now having, and I'm not going to talk out of turn, we're now looking at as Keryn said, we don't have a bespoke disability category, because why would you? Because actually you are a red member, you are a gold member, you're a silver member, but you have access needs, whatever that might be, however that's manifests itself, and that's absolutely right and proper. But they're trying to widen and improve the level of service that they currently do. So like there is conversations going on around ticketing websites and how that becomes more accessible to the likes of Keryn and his colleagues who are blind, and some of the security software that you have on a website that's a standard thing from, say, providers like Ticketmaster and See Tickets, etc. They're looking at that actually to try and take it on board and improve the experience of coming to Arsenal. And actually, they do feel inclusive, and they're not being treated differently, or they're doing it for their own equitable reasons.
So Keryn, who's driving this? And Dave, you can jump in at any time here as well, because obviously we know the club, the familiarity of how we know the club is run, with the basic kind of formulaic departments and divisions and figureheads and people. A lot of the times, from an ownership perspective, I know full well that having American sports teams like the Rams or the Avalanche or the Rapids, America is very big on, facilitating and making sure that disabled fans are very comfortable. So I know that our ownership or their group or their executives have had to deal with stuff like this. But Keryn, where does it all stem from? Is there a figurehead? Is there a champion? Is there someone that you guys love? Is there just a group? Is it what you and you guys are kind of talking about in general? Because it does seem, truth. There does seem so much truth to what you guys are saying about how our club is maybe a trailblazer in this arena.
I think it's more of an area for Anthony, because I'm somewhat of a Johnny come lately to this, and I probably sit outside the general Arsenal Disabled Supporters Association because I'm so new to this. But yeah, exactly. I wasn't aware of that until I really sort of jumped on this podcast today. So that's really cool to know. So yeah, again, I'll probably hand it to Anthony because he's probably much better placed to sort of tackle a question like that.
I'll tweet you a membership form after this.
Yeah.
We'll quite gladly have you. I mean, there are different people, you know, and I could name them. I'm quite happy to. Like I say, John Dice is one. You know, you've got Mark Brindle, our support liaison officer, as well, who's equally as you know, important for us. And there are people that we have interacted over a number of years, and you know, obviously there's been a turnover of staff, as we all probably know, in Arsenal. But with that, there is that, I won't say the word the ethos, but there is a willingness to listen. And
what was the stadium manager's name, man?
John Beattie.
Yeah, John Beattie. So yeah,
yeah. So again, it's they've said no. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not going to be a fait accompli, and you know, everything we want we get is because you know they're a business, and that's fine. You know, but there is. I genuinely believe that there is a willingness to listen, to hear what fans need. And if it's within their gift and reasonable adjustments, I mean, I can't remember the date, it was about 2016 or 2017, when the lower tier of Emirates had expanded in terms of the accessible viewing platforms, particularly on the clock end side of it. You know, and that's expanded the number of ambulant and wheelchair user spaces. Now, there is a conversation around safe standing and what the impact that might have on accessible seats. We don't know the answer to that in terms of, you know, will any views be impaired and does access numbers be reduced? That's just something that's still under development or under consideration. But in terms of one champion within the club, I think it's probably unfair to just single one person out. It is very much a team effort because there's that approach to be inclusion. And I
think also you can't ignore the interaction between the disability liaison team and Arsenal and the community, because Arsenal in the community do so much work in North London for disadvantaged groups, not necessarily just disabled. Could be Down syndrome, could be autistic, you know, as we've seen from the sensory room. So the community people come to the club and say, we're doing all this great stuff for people in the community. Shouldn't we involve them in what we're doing? So these are things we're doing as a club in the community. But what about these guys? All these people live in North London. They could be fans. Let's get them into the stadium. So they then approach the disability liaison team and say, we've got these people here. There's no real way for them to experience Arsenal at the moment. Hence, you have the conversation, and the sensory room within 2 years is built, and it's the best in Europe.
Absolutely, and it works. It could work the other way. So we you and I, Dave, talked about the purple pound. You know, in the book, and what we mean is that, you know, a lot of I can't remember the exact number of millions in the UK.
Brett talked about it a lot as well.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of money where disabled people could be a vast, you know, investor in the community. And what we're looking at with Arsenal is a company called Access Earth, and basically it maps where accessible facilities, not necessarily at the Emirates, but in the surrounding world. So what Keryn was saying about going to the pub, you know, in the Tolly, and you know, I go to the other side on the old Blackstock Road in the Bank of Friendship. But actually, if you start providing that information to supporters as a fan experience and say, right, that pub's accessible, that's not. That cafe's got an accessible toilet, that hasn't. And you know, it's fan-led interaction and fan-led information. And actually, you say, well, I want to do something a bit different. I don't want to go to the toilet, I don't want to go to the bank, but I'll go somewhere on Upper Street or somewhere like that. And actually, your day at the Arsenal doesn't start and finish at the stadium, it can be the widest around when you can put that money, that purple pound, back into the local community, and it becomes a wider experience on the day.
It's so
Even the
important.
detail about how long it takes to get from certain places to the next
Dave,
place.
I was going to say,
how early do you need to get there? Can you park under the stadium? If you're going to go to the Tolly or to the Bank of Friendship, how long will it take if you're a wheelchair user? If you're, an amputee, whatever. I mean, the amount of information is important. It's not, as Anthony says, it's not just you turn up 5 minutes before the game and you leave 5 minutes after the game. It's not that straightforward if you have a disability.
It's so important that you talk about that, because once you're there and you're in your moment and you're in your seat and everything's cool. But getting there is, half the battle, half the challenge. So the fact that you guys are talking about these things, information is power, of course. And I think that with new technology, apps, sharing of information, this all becomes so much more valuable as well. Danny's in the house as well, who features in the book. Good evening,
Really?
Danny, from a Burkout Wonderland. He was talking about having a chat with Mike Feinberg from a Gooners podcast about meeting up one time, and he told him to check the access for every pub he goes to let him know if he can get in. Because, of course, Danny isn't able to, travel as freely and easily. And his chapter in the book also, Dave, I have to say one of the things, guys, because we're going to get onto some fun stuff and get your fun stuff, and Keryn and Anthony as well. What I love about what Dave's done in the book is, the situations of each person's life are serious, but the way you guys are able to tell your story through humor that then evolves into inspiration is what I think makes the book really special. It's about Anthony talking about being on the M1 in the snow or going to the Parma game. It's Keryn talking about being a Paralympian and his experiences, switching sports and Beijing and 2008. Dave, there's just so much of that. Brett Leverton was going to join us tonight and unfortunately couldn't. So a shout out to Brett and to everybody who participated and is part of this book with all their wonderful stories. We'll have Brett on another show because this is an evergreen story that will carry on and on. Dave, is
Brett, you definitely need to get on the committee.
Yeah, totally. He's got stories. You've taken the stories and shared them, I think, through the personalities of the subjects in such a engaging way.
The reason is I'm not a very good writer, so it's easier to let everyone else tell their story rather than me try and write their story. That's the honest answer. Did it with Geordie Armstrong, did it with the comedian's book. You let other people tell the story. Then it becomes like a conversation, and the reader feels like they're in the room with two people having a conversation. That's the limit of my writing, but it works well, I think, for this type of book. Because I don't profess to be a great writer, but I think I do have good conversations. And if you can get those conversations, like you said at the start, it's like chatting in the pub, isn't it? When I started writing about Arsenal, my inspiration was, let's just have those conversations in a pub and write them down. That's how I write about Arsenal. It's like all the things you talk about before the game or after the game. It's that sort of podcast is. It's what blogs are. But I think the thing I would say, if you haven't read the book, obviously, please buy it. But the thing that comes through is from everyone is, whatever your story is, when you're in the stadium, you're an Arsenal fan. Doesn't matter whether you can see, whether you can hear, whether you can walk, you're an Arsenal fan. And Alex Brooker does that brilliantly in his foreword. Whatever difficulties he's had through life, whatever difficulties he has day to day, how quickly he can walk to the stadium or not, once he's inside, he's just another Gooner, and that's the most important thing. You're just another Arsenal fan. You're just another Arsenal fan, as passionate as the guy next to you or the woman next to you.
Okay, I love that. Before I get to some favorite things, this is our summer series, so part of it is a bit of pop culture, but also we haven't had these guys on before, so we got to know a little bit of their favorite Arsenal things. But Keryn, before I do that, I want to know. But without doing all the hard work, one of my good friends is the volleyball coach for the US Women's Olympic team. So I got to put a gold medal around my neck just a few months ago, which
Can you tell me what that feels like?
I mean, it was a bucket list moment. But the fact that he even was there and was coaching and part of the experience, And that's what I kind of wanted to talk to you about, that, you know, Olympic community and what it meant to you to participate, represent your country, do the things that you've done, the caps behind you. Talk our listeners through that a little bit, because sometimes I wake up and I have a headache, or I feel like, oh man, this is so tough. And then I remember I get this. I told Dave I have it on my side, and I pick this up, and it just when I think about I can't do something, I'm reminded of this.
I paid you so much money to say that.
You haven't paid me a cent since you owe me too much money, Seager. Keryn, can you talk me through? I have so much respect for Olympic athletes. Like, it's insane.
Well, but yeah, being a Paralympian, and I look back on it now, it's like, wow, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe I was part of something so huge and so big. And when you're part of it, you don't actually fully appreciate any of it, especially when you're in the Paralympics and you're getting your ass handed to you by everybody you're playing against. You're like, well, this is just the same as any other day. But you know, all the stuff you have to do to get there is, you know, is just the same as any Olympian. So a Paralympian will go through that and have, you know, the associated difficulties that you'd have with access and needs in any other part of life, whether that's a job, getting to a football match, wherever that might be. But for me, you know, I look back on my career, although with no gold medals, you know, I picked up a couple of silvers along the way.
I'll take that too.
Yeah, exactly. And that silver medal was on my bedside table for a long time, as that kind of motivation when I didn't want to get up and do that skill session at 6 o'clock in the morning. But, you know, I played with a group of people before we went professional. You know, I played from 2005 until early 2013 as an amateur. But all the guys studying, doing jobs, doing all the same stuff, bankers, police, people working in university, lecturers, all that, you know, so just general, everyday, normal guys, mathematicians, all sorts of people like that, really interesting people that you wouldn't find in most football teams, certainly not professional ones. And then turning professional with the same group of people in 2013, you know, being able to be paid to you know, to do what you love doing. Still doing a little part-time work, because £12,000 doesn't go very far these days, but even those days. But it, you know, it's just to think, right, all I've got to do today is I've got to get up, I've got to feed myself, I've got to do training in the morning, come back, probably watch a box set, do some training in the afternoon, pick the kids up from school, and I'm done. And I, you know, to live that life for 4 or 5 years before I retired was absolutely incredible. And sort of, again, lifelong friendships that I wouldn't have had without it. You know, being able to travel to parts of the world I never would have got to. And now I'm sort of coaching with the Indian national team. I coach a team in the Czech Republic, and I do some coaching with Brighton and Hove Albion as well. And all this stuff wouldn't have happened without, you know, a lot of people before me doing the heavy lifting, getting the stage set for us. People like Dave Clark and Darren Harris, who are like the pioneers of blind football in this country, along with the first head coach Tony Larkin, that were rattling tins on stations to get people to give money to the team so that they could travel away to European Championships, to the Football Association stepping in and funding things, and now getting to the point where, you know, there's a whole group of people, Mikey Poley, like you mentioned earlier, who could be anything he wanted to be in the game, because the pathways are there for the guys to achieve everything they want. So blind football's given me so much, and I'm very thankful for it.
I love that, and I love how, you know, the world's evolving in many ways, from color to culture, to people, you know, human rights, everything, and to just kind of see the boundaries being lifted and opened and the opportunities widened, and it takes a lot for that to happen. Right, before we circle back with your final thought, I've got to get some fun stuff. Mr. MBE, are you ready?
Go.
All right. Favorite all-time player?
Behind me, if you can't see that, and I'm wearing it.
I mean, I don't know why I even asked, to be honest with you.
Dennis Bergkamp, simple answer. Best player I've ever seen play.
Aye, spesh. Keryn, what about you?
Can I have 5? No.
Cheating.
I was gonna, if it was gonna be like to pay money to see someone train, do up their laces, whatever it might be, it would be Bergkamp without a doubt. But my sort of cult hero and the guy that got me hooked in the game and hooked as an Arsenal fan to start with was Tony Adams, and it always will be.
Oh, okay. Can't argue with that.
That's why he became a clogging centre back.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, your favourite ever Arsenal kit?
I personally go for the 93 cup winners, double cup winners, with the 3 arm.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's not particularly pleasant to look at, but it's just quite iconic, and I like it.
I like that. That was the last year we won the League Cup and a European trophy, guys. That's iconic.
Yeah.
Was it Dave? Am I right?
In the same shirt.
Same shirt. Yeah.
Same shirt over 2 years. Yeah, but yes.
Keryn, what about you?
For me, it's a weird one. It's an away shirt. It was in that kind of weird interim Stefan Schwartz, Glenn Helder era, and it was that dark blue one with the kind of little lightning bolts going down with Arsenal written on the tail of it.
Do you know what? I love that. And you know what, Dave? I love that neither one of them said the bruised banana. Kind of.
To be honest with you, I think it's one of those things that, if we're all honest, people didn't like it that much at the time.
No, they didn't.
It's become this retro hindsight iconic shirt. I don't think it's,
Okay, best game you've ever been to, Anthony?
I would say that Old Trafford in 2002 was probably it, but actually,
nice.
I'd actually say the Chelsea Cup final in 17.
Oh, that was fancy.
That was a belter, because we were so up against it, so unfavoured to do it, and the players brought it on the pitch, but God, did we bring it on fair?
The Mertesacker masterclass.
Well, yeah, and that Rob Holding trying to get into Costa's head. I mean, that was just, if I can use the word, shithousing.
You can, yeah.
Completely fantastic. So I'd go 17.
Awesome. Keryn, what about you?
Oh, Mr. Armchair's got nothing to rival that. So I'd say my best one's yet to come, but the best one and experience I've been to so far was just because of the whole day was Southampton at home in December last year. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, your favourite Arsenal manager? Depends how old you are here.
Oh, it's got to be Wenger.
It does, but I do have a fondness for George.
I do too.
I do.
I don't know if Kevin's done that to me, but I really do have a fondness for George.
He's not talked about enough for what he achieved, and
only because of the way he left the club.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed, yeah.
That's it. Absolutely.
And what he did afterwards.
Well,
yeah, but he was Agent Graham there. He was doing his job.
He was on the pitch. He was on the pitch the other week, though, pre-Leeds for the 1971. The whole team were out there. He was out there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And they honoured them all that weekend. So.
Good old George. Right, current favourite player. Back to you, Anthony.
I would say Odegaard. In the spirit of Bergkamp, I would definitely say Odegaard. He's a beautiful footballer.
Keryn?
I keep copying Anthony because I was going to say exactly the same thing. But if I'm going to have a point of difference, it's going to be Tierney. Love him, absolutely love his attitude. If we could get him on the pitch for 30 plus games this year, we're going to see something special out of him. But yeah, love his attitude. Should be skipper for me.
Once again, I really like how neither one of you picked Saka, because that's the obvious kind of answer maybe these days. So
I just think with Tierney, I think we might as well make him an honorary member of ADSA, quite frankly. He's that injury prone.
All right, a player you would love to see at the Arsenal.
Do you know what? So I had to ask a friend on this one.
Phone a friend, who wants to be a millionaire, phone a friend.
I mean, I want to say Kevin De Bruyne, but I think we desperately need a decent centre half, so I'd go Van Dijk.
People laughed at Liverpool when they spent 72 million on him. That worked out just fine. Keryn, what about you?
Oh, it feels absolutely no questions asked. I'd have a time machine and go back 10 years and put Iniesta in there. But what I would love to see is us go out and sign a proper shithouse centre midfielder who's just going to rough things up a bit. And I would like to see somebody like Neves come in.
Okay, I love it. What is the best thing about being an Arsenal fan?
For me, it's a team you can believe in. It's the cannon the right way round. But actually, what Dave captured in the book, it's everyone. It's your mates. The reason you come to football is to bond and be with your mates, or your family, or whoever you choose to go with. And you know, you meet people you would never normally meet, and that's what Arsenal is for me.
And to jump in to not just to plug the book, but that came through very strongly, didn't it? When you've been through. Like you had, Ant, when you're in ill health, so you're even more isolated during the pandemic than perhaps getting back to seeing your friends at football after a long period is just fantastic.
Yeah,
and it is. Sometimes people, when you're on Twitter or and all these people are, why aren't we signing this player? Why? And you see some of the stuff come out from the club, and you see the responses from fans. Don't tell us about that thing that's happening in the community. Sign a striker. It's like you just. If you're going to games, it's the whole day. It isn't just the 90 minutes. The 90 minutes is brilliant, but it's the before and after, it's the conversations, it's the catching up, it's the gripes, it's the the laughing, it's the whole thing, isn't it? Yeah, that's what live sport's all about.
This is why I love doing this show tonight. There's so much chaos with the summer transfer market, so much talk every day. This player, that player, and of course, as a channel, we cover it. But during the summer, I love doing shows like this anyway. Dave will tell you we do a lot of shows like this during the normal season. So, to me, this stuff is so important. And a lot of our listeners already writing back and saying, I had no idea. Thanks for enlightening, sharing. And I've got a couple of questions for you as well before we end here. But before we do that, I have to get Keryn's answer on your favourite thing about being an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, well, like growing up in the 90s and like the late 90s, early 2000s, I think we were spoiled. And that for me, like back then, it was about the football that we were playing and the entertainment value that you got from it. I think we're getting back to that now. But yeah, sort of sharing what Anthony and Dave said, really, is that togetherness, that understanding how there's that whole community out there. And like I say, when you go to games, you don't experience all those people that are griping about the signings that we're not making and sort of Arteta out and all that sort of nonsense. You just... with like-minded people that want to share a drink or not and want to be part of the atmosphere, singing songs, and it's just a great all-round feeling.
So here's one from Lynn for you guys. In my younger days, I was always bullied due to my disability, but these bullies did me a favor because they made me a much stronger person. What I'd like to ask these three great guys is, do you think that having a disability gave you more strength and a stronger mentality to prove a point, obviously, when you were younger? Lynn is an Arsenal fan and has been for years. She's 70 plus years old. She's a baller. She lost her husband a couple of years ago and is one of our favorite listeners. And she has so many great stories to tell. And I love that she's asked this question. Anthony, why don't you kick off?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, to a degree. So I can sort of reflect and recognise what Lynn said around bullying up, but I don't think it was prolonged. It was individual cases as a child. I think it gave me, I don't know if stronger mentality, but it gave me the confidence to face that down, and to a bit more resilience when the world is not designed for a wheelchair user. And that's, do I let myself be consumed by that negativity or the frustration that the inability to, or inaccess that I'd have to face? I think that's what's taught me that actually you have to roll with the punches a little bit and look what you can do rather than what you can't do. And there's a lot of joy in that. And pardon, I think it's a healthier way to be. There'd always be something in the world that doesn't allow us. So it's the medical model of disability versus the social model. And if you're so minded, Google it. But it's quite a dull read. But let's focus on what you can do and also what you can do for others. And I think it's hopefully that's a positive message to sign off on, really.
That's wonderful. And Keryn, what about you? A quick message for Lynn on that one.
Yeah, I'd say good on you, and I think it's great that you haven't let that shape you in a negative way, and that it has made you a stronger person. I'd say that I was probably a little bit more combative as a youngster because of it, because I did encounter small elements of bullying, but I think I was probably just naturally inclined to be quite confrontational, so I didn't really let that happen and kind of nipped it at source. So that I was lucky that didn't really happen to me to a great extent, but I think I carried that through with me, to be honest, as a person and as a player as well. So I've always been pretty confrontational.
It's fair, Keryn, you didn't tell people. Well, even when you were partially sighted, you played football in the school team. You weren't telling people that you could barely see the ball. I mean,
in school,
you carried on regardless. You didn't let anyone know.
Yeah, in school, my friends knew I was partially sighted. They just thought I was a bit shit. They just when I played in clubs and stuff, I always found a way just to kind of get picked. So whether it was just go around making loads of tackles, that was just my role, and that's what got me picked. But again, I think I've carried that kind of. Hopefully, it's less of a chip on my shoulder now, but more of a just kind of combative edge that says, right, I'm gonna make sure I get this done and prove a point. Really,
that's amazing. And Chris has a question. Of course, the tassels they're all after your caps, Keryn. You better be careful. And our Malaysian listener, we have a few in Malaysia as well. They want to know how much do those caps mean to you, and will you sell one to me?
It depends how much you're offering. So yeah, no, they mean a lot. And with our stuff, so I played 127 times for England and Great Britain over 13 years. And we got a cap every time we played at a major tournament. So those ones behind me are just some of the ones that either my kids haven't broke or I haven't lost. So I've had about... Buggers. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had 14 major tournaments. So we got each one of those with your name stitched into it in the tournament. And I was really lucky that a couple of weeks ago I played at the Disability Cup, sponsored by BT at the St George's Park. And myself and my teammate and great friend Robin Williams both got presented with a golden cap for reaching our 100th appearances. A little bit late, but the FA recognised that. And another former player of ours, Darren, got awarded for his 150th as well, and he's the most capped disability player of all time. So the fact the FA are doing things like that is massively welcome, and I know that they're getting better and better at kind of rewarding and recognising the current guys for their achievements.
Sophie, Keryn also signed one of his last England shirts and his captain's armband that he wore in his last time he was captain to send to Mike Pooley. So Mike Pooley's got one of Keryn's shirts signed and the armband he wore in his last captain's.
I think Mikey talked to us about Keryn, and off camera, his dad did especially. That's amazing. That's really cool. We'll have to get you two on the show at the same time one day.
Very talented boy. Very talented boy. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, he is. He's a good boy too. Yeah, yes. His parents are lovely as well. Yeah, that's definitely good. That's good to know. Wow, very cool. Love that. Okay, so let's get you guys out your final thought. I'm going to leave the last word to Mr. Seager. Anthony, this is part one, by the way. You guys have to come back on. I want you back on during the season where you want to rant, rave, love, loathe, love, whatever you want to do. You're welcome back to talk football as well. It's just been an absolute pleasure. What do you want to leave Arsenal fans with knowing about you and the club this evening?
I think Arsenal is our mates for me, and I don't want to. If I stop going to Arsenal for the football, I think I'd lose more in terms of not being access to my mates than just simply going to the game. Oh God, look how thin I am now compared to that.
Look at that.
There you go.
This one's a good shot.
That was at Lord's about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, that's the summer sport. There you go. That's Trent Bridge.
You are a cricket fiend, aren't you? You weren't lying when you told me you loved cricket.
That's the summer sport. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There'll be a few clashes in August now that the football starts again. But, what I would say to anyone who lives with a disability of any type is don't be shy about facing it down and come into football, and particularly come to Arsenal, because there is a place for you. and you can get and experience the team, be close to a fan base that is welcoming. And if you need help, you're reticent, then there's no need to be. You can reach out to us at ADSA. And if we can share that, Sophie, that would be great in terms of our details.
I'll put it in the description of I have you here, but the other stuff I can add to the description in the YouTube channel for sure.
At Arsenal DSA and or at Arsenal_disability. Reach out to us, reach out to the team. They're great. They're here to help everyone. They want to have everyone to come to the game, enjoy a great day, enjoy the experience, and let's hope for a successful season going forward, and let's finally get beat that lot.
Yes, that lot. I love how we never refer to them by name. We just say that lot or whatever else we can't say on this show particularly. Mr. Seal, how about you? Look at you, number 4. Hey, look at that. Love it.
I am very much looking forward to this season. I'm really excited about it. I think we're going to do some exciting stuff in this window, and I won't get too happy on when it happens. But I suppose I'd echo what Anthony said there in terms of the club. Whoever you are, there's a place for you. I just wanted to we'll go on a more general point of that. As a disabled person, it's great to be in a room, to have a platform like this, to talk to other people about disability and the impact of that. But it's made me think about wider society. And we've seen in America where sort of women's rights and body autonomy has been taken away to an extent, to a huge degree. And the conversations we've been having in this country about trans athletes not being able to have access to sport. And as a disabled person, I realised that we really are still in a privileged position because we're not having rights taken away from us just yet. And I just think my message to everybody really is to make sure that whether it's an Arsenal support, whether it's somebody else, if we're going to be kind and inclusive to people on disability, we're doing it for all the same reasons when it comes to gender, ethnicity, and to our friends in the LGBT community as well, as I know a lot of Arsenal groups do. But I see a lot of really harmful, hurtful stuff on Twitter for groups that are marginalised. And I know we're very lucky to have this platform as disabled fans, and I think we need to extend that out to everybody.
Very well said. Beautifully said. Absolutely, completely concur.
You should do some public speaking.
I'll have a go.
Lynn, I would definitely deliver more shows like this. Absolutely. There's more to football. We love our community. It's so important to us. And, like Dave said, he said something earlier on in the interview, is like in the show when after COVID, going back and seeing your mates, just the things that you miss out on, whether it's your hobby, if you go to the Lions Club to play cards, or, you go to a knitting class or your yoga class or whatever it is. When you go to the football, you probably don't see anyone outside of seeing them at the football. And that's what makes it so magical, right? So we're going to close the show and we're going to give the last word to Mr. Dave Seager. Personally, I'm absolutely thrilled that you guys came on. Yes. Super Kev is traveling and couldn't make tonight's show, but he follows you guys closely in the book, of course, and he's spoken to Dave before. Lots of love from him as well, and our entire community. This has been a really inspiring piece for me in a time where I'm struggling a little bit with, there's a lot going on in life, and I think sometimes we don't realize what goes on in people's worlds, whether it's family, health, and all these different things. So thank you for giving me a bit of a kick up the butt today. I really appreciate it. Mr. Seager, you take us out.
Well, I think the thing is that it's come through from everyone is what you've got to remember is that supporting Arsenal, it is supporting a football team, but Arsenal is more than a football team. Arsenal is an institution, it's a family, it's a community, and anyone who wants to be part of it can and should be part of it. And just to show that the impetus is not stopping, we're already talking to the club about the next order of books, and there's going to be another push next season. We've got the fixtures, we're waiting to see what game, and there'll probably be another signing, and hopefully there'll be more. Like we had Per Mertesacker and Jack Wilshere at the launch, there's going to be a similar event between the start of the season and when we break for the World Cup. So the club aren't stopping on this. I was just blessed and fortunate that I decided to write a book at the same time as Arsenal were making. Arsenal for everyone's been the ethos for inclusivity and diversity at Arsenal since 2008, but there's a real push on last season. Obviously, all the shirts had it, but it's not a strap line for Arsenal. It's what they live and breathe. So I'm just fortunate that my book, coincided with what they wanted to do. So hopefully there will be another push, in the new season, and hopefully more people can read it and more people can understand about these amazing people that I've interviewed and what Arsenal do in support of that community, because we're all Arsenal fans, and that's what you've got to remember. It doesn't matter what you do, where you come from, whether you walk, talk, or don't, whether you see, whether you can't hear, you're an Arsenal fan. You're an Arsenal fan. That's it.
And from one Arsenal fan to another, good night, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to follow these guys. Look at the description for all of the links, and let's keep this story rolling.
And you can still buy the book at Arsenal Direct.
There you go. At ease, everyone. Good night.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.